We want to become the standard of funding within the Web3 space, because if anyone can tokenize their equity, we can be the platform for every startup.
Recently, we've seen the massive explosion of this meme coin ecosystem. Do you think that's a symptom of flawed fundraising models?
In my opinion, that's actually the most fair model.
You guys continue to have the opinion that fair launch is the way to go. Why is that, despite the success of this like longer term funding cycle that exists adjacent to your platform?
We have a way to make sure that you are investing in a credible team. For us, that's what's missing in the industry to make sure that we fund the right opportunities.
What's your greatest ambition for TaiKai?
Today's podcast is brought to you by EtherFi Cash, your gateway to spending your crypto. Cash is a truly crypto-native credit card. Spend with a crypto-integrated credit card and stablecoin account, all with crypto, all hassle-free. Earn 3% cash back with perks, event tickets, and additional rewards for every purchase on your Ether.fi Cash credit card. Use the referral link for $50 cash back on your first $1,000 spent.
We're happy to be here today with Mario from TaiKai, principally, although, I know you're a man who wears a lot of hats. How are you liking Dubai this year?
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for the invite. As you can see, it's pretty hot in Dubai at the moment. I think it's comparable with the number of side events that there are in the...
I think they said there's like 1,000. Yeah.
I saw like 2,000.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's impossible.
And I went to the main conference today, and it was, fairly empty because, with so many side events, people tend to go more to the side events than the main conference.
Right.
But so far, I think it's been a cool experience.
Cool.
I'm enjoying it.
I know you're Portuguese, and you've previously had been one of the organizers of ETH Porto.
Yes.
Talk to me. Does that give you a unique perspective on conferences? Do you have a kind of appreciation for what they're doing here?
For sure. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and you don't get the gratitude that you hope sometimes. People are just, why do I have to be stuck in this line, and why do I have to buy this ticket that whatever. So there's a lot of things, and especially on the logistics side, that I hate on organizing an event. But I actually started doing that in 2016.
Wow.
So I discovered crypto late 2015. And then in 16, I decided, okay, maybe there are other people in the space that feel alone like I do. I was reading everything online, learning everything online. But maybe there are people like me that are crazy enough to enjoy Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of these things. So I started a community and started organizing small events. But the biggest one was definitely ETH Porto. We were counting to have like 300 people. We ended up having more than 700 people, which was the biggest tech event in Porto so far.
Way.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is a crypto event. It's awesome.
That's cool.
But yeah, really enjoyed that experience.
And what was your background before coming to crypto?
So before that, I studied economics, and when I was studying, professors told me that I had two options. One, go to a consulting firm, or go into a bank. I did both, and it was interesting as a learning experience, but not my type of thing. I always wanted to create my own business. I was essentially learning my way into discovering what I wanted to do, and the latest traditional professional experience was as an investment banker, and that's when I discovered crypto. And I was already helping a few startups with fundraising. I joined the pieces together, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is something that I really want to do, and I really want to explore. So that's when I decided, to create communities, to start helping local crypto projects. I was thankfully part of the first ICO that happened in Portugal. So that was a pretty cool experience. And then in 2018, I said to myself, okay, maybe it's time to create my own thing. And that's when TaiKai started.
Excellent. So you've kind of been through around, or well, I guess first we'll give the audience a little bit of background on like what TaiKai is, so that we can understand. But I want to go back to kind of like the phases of crypto funding and how crypto companies have kind of bootstrapped, raised funding, been venture backed. I want to back up to that eventually. But tell me in 60 seconds what TaiKai is.
Yeah, so TaiKai initially started as a platform that could connect big companies and organizations with builders, entrepreneurs, and general innovators in the space. This was too broad, so we really had to find a niche where this could happen. And we ended up discovering that hackathons were actually a pretty cool way to approach this. So in essence, what we are is a hackathon platform that serves both the Web3 and the Web2 world. So we have a lot of companies also in the Web2 space like Pfizer, Microsoft, Nissan using our tool. And we believe that through that, we can create better solutions, a lot of innovation, and yeah, that's what we've been doing.
And then you also have a product, TaiKai Garden. What is that, and what do you guys do with that?
Yeah, so by creating TaiKai, we found that there were a lot of things that were broken in this innovation space or process. So hackathons are a pretty cool way to kickstart ideas and MVPs of cool products. But typically what happens is after a hackathon ends, these projects die. So everyone distributes the prizes, says bye-bye, and that's it, right? And there is no following up on that. So the garden is essentially a new way for these projects to continue their work, to mature their projects, eventually turn them into startups. And through the garden, they get access to mentors, to community feedback, to team members if they need. And they also get a stamp of approval. So they submit for what we call a graduation process. And when they are approved, they get this seal that proves that they've been graduated. So they're big in the space. And through that, this culminates into the possibility of them launching their token using the garden. So we use Uniswap v4 mechanics in order for them to be able to sell their token, to create a pool on Uniswap and start trading their token straight away. So all of these things are also embedded into the garden.
Okay, fantastic. So now we have a little bit of context for like TaiKai and TaiKai Garden. Now I want to go back to what we chatted about previously. So, and I think that's like the first era of like crypto funding, or maybe I'll say modern crypto funding.
Yeah.
And it's the ICO era. So tell me about the ICO era and what it kind of looked like and why that created some issues.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think that was completely groundbreaking. Having the possibility of crowdfunding your project by selling tokens. And this, in theory sounds like a very cool promise, but it had a lot of things that were not there yet. On one side, most of projects were vaporware, so there wasn't, any specific product attached to that specific company. Most of them were just white papers, and they were, selling a dream. That's fine, but most of the people were really interested on the tech and were thinking that there would be a tech behind it, right? So these projects raised a lot of millions through this process, and it eventually ended up turning this ICO craze and mechanism into something that was bad. And people started to not be trusting the ICO process anymore.
Right. And I think two interesting things to note here. First, like I know Solana kind of gets criticized now for like mostly being based on a meme economy, but to be fair, Ethereum's initial application was ICO, which like this ICO era, these ICO launches and fundraising, which was also a kind of like a highly speculative use case. You know, perhaps
Yes.
there was, you know, some more noble visions than, you know, like meme coins, but ultimately it was a speculative platform. And then the other thing that like, you know, now we think of all these kind of on-chain businesses and crypto has evolved to become more directly on-chain, right?
Yeah.
And previously it was like, oh, we're going to build a rocket ship to go to Mars or something. It was just like a fundraising platform almost,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then, you know, simultaneously, and I think some of the biggest rounds in crypto to date were also in the ICO era, but they were VC rounds. So
Yeah.
I know you have a little bit of a banking background. You've helped fundraise previously. What does that process look like? And is that process broken at all around like VCs?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that the ICO phase was something that was marvelous, but it ended up, you know, leaving a sour taste in people. So people started to trust more projects that had credible people behind it. And by credible people, I don't just mean the team, but actually, you know, the ones that were funding also the projects. So that's when VCs started to come in, and you know, you have very interesting projects that were VC funded. But then, you know, this turned also into a pitfall, which was VCs also want to make a lot of money in this, right? So suddenly there was no big difference between an ICO and a VC backed project, because VCs were just looking for the quick buck. So they were just looking for the company to get the most amount of hype that they could get, to do a TGE, to sell it on retail. So retail wasn't able to buy it pre-sale as they did before. So you ended up, you know, creating a funnel where the retail would be the exit liquidity.
Right.
And that's what is broken, in my opinion. That is, of course, not the whole industry. And there's a lot of VCs out there that are amazing, that actually support projects. And that in some cases, besides investing in tokens, also invest in equity, which I believe that, you know, show that they want to the project to succeed longer term. But yes, in my opinion, I think it would be fair to say that this model is also broken, and we need to find some middle ground that actually, you know, allows for the crypto projects to be created and to flourish and to be funded. But, you know, without all of these extraction mechanics and actors in the space.
There are kind of two more modern phenomenon that I'd like to kind of cover. The first one is kind of like the DeFi yield farm token launch model. I know like in 2020, 2021, like Andre Cronje, basically like people would launch a token, you farm the token essentially, you provide liquidity, and that kind of gets you, you know, equity or pseudo equity in the protocol. Can you talk to me about the drawbacks of that model at all?
Yeah, the problem with that is, okay, you were again trying to be more community focused instead of VC focused. So that part, I think it's good, and it actually paved the way for DeFi to become what it is right now. There's a lot of cool projects out there that probably weren't born or didn't exist if it weren't for that. Curve is a good example, right? And what I think that is a little bit broken on that model is this is an incentive game. So you're playing a game where if you have incentives for people to farm your token, cool. Once those run out, then people will turn into another token and turn into another product, right? So you're not creating retention. You're just, you know, creating a way for people to get more money and this all becomes a speculative game again. And yeah, that's, in my opinion, the problem of that approach.
And then recently we've seen like the massive explosion of kind of this meme coin ecosystem across multiple chains. Every chain now has their meme coin, and some people embrace it to different degrees. Do you think that's a symptom of kind of flawed fundraising models, or is it independent?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, that's actually the most fair model in a way. I just think that it's focused towards something that doesn't add value to the industry. Of course, we can argue, yes, but it brings retail users. These retail users, by investing in a meme coin, discovered that there are more projects in the space that are actually building tech and building interesting products to use. But that's a flywheel that takes a really long time to kick in. And sometimes it doesn't kick in at all, right? Because when there's a downturn in the market, people will just be wrecked on meme coins, and they blame the whole industry, and they think that the whole industry is the same. So on that note, I would say that, it's very interesting to see that meme coins have created a way for the community to join first and to join the token economy in a more fair way for everyone, but still it's not, in my opinion, the sector that we should keep growing, because we need to focus more on serious stuff that actually aggregates value.
So talk to me about kind of the TaiKai approach. We've discussed a bunch of different kind of funding models and basically the history of how people have launched tokens and all of the flaws with that. What are the TaiKai basic premises for token launches, and how do you imagine that will kind of fix token launches and the kind of general crypto economy, I guess?
Yeah. So we don't believe that we have a one-size-fits-all approach. Although we also believe that this might, in a way, make the industry and the ecosystem a little bit more fair in terms of token sales and fundraising. So our approach is essentially make sure that, as I mentioned before, so going a little bit back, as I mentioned before, meme coins have a fair model for these retail and community users to get in. So we want to mimic that, so everyone can join the token sale of a project on the garden. The main difference is that these projects are vetted. So we have a way to make sure that you're not just investing in vaporware, that you are investing in a credible team. And for us, that's what's missing in the industry to make sure that we fund the right opportunities. Mm-hmm. And the way that we do that is essentially in two ways or two steps. One is, using AI tools. So the AI is at our disposal and it makes our lives easier. So why not do that? So we do a verification of teams' profiles, of the project itself, if it's not just copy-paste from something that is out there already. And we try to make an assessment and give a score to the project. So that's phase one. In phase two, we have a human community that at the moment is comprised by our own team. But in the future, what we want to do is to be able to open this up for more people to join. But again, these people need to be experts in evaluating if the projects are contributing or not to the ecosystem. And once there's that, you get the graduation badge that I was telling about. So that's when you get to launch your token. And through this way, we believe that we can generate more interesting and curated opportunities for the retail investors.
So tell me about like the launch process of the token itself. Let's say I'm a team, I've created a small AI project or product or something, and now I want to launch a token. What does that process look for me like from the team side of things?
Yeah, so from the team side of things, essentially what you have to do is create your project on the garden. And by creating your project, you can also submit updates for that project. And that's where the community feedback and validation comes in. So community can comment, can say, okay, this is fantastic. I want to use this product. When is it live, etc. So kind of like Product Hunt's approach. Because I think that's typically something that works pretty well on discovering new products. And we want to make sure that we're able to do this specifically for the Web3 industry. So once you've done that and you feel, okay, now my product is mature and I can submit that to approval, I can apply for graduation. Once my graduation is approved, I'm a graduated product and I can launch my token. And the token launch part is essentially you configure everything that you need on launching a token. So the name of the token, the market cap that it will have. So all of these things are configurable. We also give the possibility of projects to be able to distribute part of the revenue that is generated by the swapping of the tokens.
Like a tax.
Like a tax that might be distributed, partially for the community, partially for the team itself. So we have all of these mechanics to make sure that the project also doesn't need to sell the tokens to be able to have money and liquidity to build the product, right? So this is also a good way, if the token has a lot of activity and volume, in essence, this team is also getting some money back and is able to use that instead of just dumping the token on the market. So by doing so and by configuring all of this, I launch the token and I have a time frame where the token is only available to be bought and not sold. So this is the token sale mechanic, let's say. So within those 7 days, let's put it like that, the community is able to buy your token. The price of that token keeps increasing as there's demand for it until that token supply reserved for the sale runs out. Once that's done, we have a pool that is immediately created on Uniswap so that there can be swapping on that pool. So both for buy and sell of the token. And part of the token sale is going to be placed into the liquidity of that same pool. So this means that every project will get already liquidity and like market making for their pool. This is great because there's not that incentive or not that typical chart where you see a lot of buys and a green candle just up and then completely down, and you see this across every token launch, with some exceptions, of course. I think that Hyperliquid is probably one of the most interesting examples, but most of them have this problem, and we also want to try to fix this problem.
Interesting. And then obviously I'm sure in some ways you're inspired by platforms similar to PumpFun, and PumpFun has been a platform, one of these fair launch platforms that has been incredibly successful over the last year or so, I guess. A little over a year. Can you talk to me about some of the mechanical differences between TaiKai and Pump.Fun? Notably, I know Pump.Fun starts at basically a valuation of 0. I think with TaiKai it's different. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then the other part is PumpFun basically sells, theoretically 100% of the tokens, or 100% minus whatever ends up in the liquidity pool. But is that the same case with TaiKai?
No. So this is something that is more configurable by teams.
Okay.
And the reason why we do this is because, for meme coins, this structure, I think that works, the pump.fun structure.
Right.
Where you have 100% of the tokens sold to the community. But for these types of projects, you might need, a portion of those tokens for the treasury of the project. You might also want to attribute some tokens to advisors. That's something that is also possible using our infrastructure and the team as well, right? So I don't think that if you allocate a percentage of the token supply to the team, that the team will immediately sell. What you need is to create specific incentives or constraints so that doesn't happen. And in our case, we enforce 2-year vesting for every token that the team gets. Either they distribute it amongst themselves or advisors or wherever. So within those 2 years, the vesting is linear, so they basically can sell the tokens that are available in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. And that's another fair way to make sure that the community also doesn't get wrecked once the token is live. And again, it also allows for these projects to have different ways of distributing the token supply.
Okay, and then I guess that this, if a team can still kind of set their price, then this doesn't necessarily preclude VC-funded teams from participating in the platform, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And we aren't against that, right? Because these teams are also interesting, and they might be building an interesting product. And by selling tokens to the community, I think that is also something that's healthier than just looking for VC deals and that's it.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess one potential issue with this is kind of like the FDV. Like we've seen, this is basically the problem of like the kind of 2020 and onward generation of tokens, where it's like they launch with low float, high FDV, 5% of the tokens of the total supply in the market, and then 95% go to the foundation or team or investors over time, right?
Yes.
So, but theoretically, that could still apply to TaiKai, right? Like theoretically, a team could still own a large percentage of tokens, right? Or do you kind of discourage that?
Yes, we try to discourage that. So what we try to enforce is at least 50% of the tokens need to be distributed to the community.
Okay.
So that you don't end up with 90% or 95% of the tokens distributed to the team. But again, there's ways where you could eventually bend this. So this is what we're trying to figure out what happens actually in the market, so that we can try to figure out ways also to fix this problem. But if this works and if this proves to be a fairer model than what there is in the market, I think that we already have a good starting point. Mm-hmm. And from that, we can try to fix smaller problems that appear.
Well, it seems like basically right now there's two main models in the market. The first one is like the old model, which is a team and its investors and founders all kind of come together and they say, well, we're going to do this vesting and we're going to have this many tokens. And it's just kind of invented and completely arbitrary and completely invented by the team. And obviously that's going to be favorable for the team, right?
Yes.
Then on the other side, we have kind of the fair launch platforms like Pump.Fun, where it's just like, okay, everyone can buy tokens at a valuation of 0 or whenever they get in, and we have our kind of rules we set. But this is like this is our vision of what a fair launch is. Yeah. And it seems like you guys your opinion is that the right answer is somewhere in the middle. It's we're going to be kind of curative of this this launch process, and we think that we can kind of set a range of best practices by which it'll both be viable for real teams that need funding to launch, but also fair for the end retail user. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. And then, there are some specific parameters that we can change along the way. If we get community feedback telling us that we need to have some sort of limit or threshold into a project's market cap or into the token distribution for VCs or teams or whatever, then we learn with that feedback and we try to adjust through that. But we believe that by standing in the middle, we're able to capture good and interesting projects that would otherwise just focus on the old model. I'll just go with VCs. This is a lot less work for me and probably I gain a lot more by doing so. So what we're trying to do is by standing in the middle, we can attract those projects and we can attract the other ones that would already do a community focused sale. And we just want to make sure that the project is legit. And this is for us, the first obstacle and the first problem that we want to solve in a very good way.
It seems to me like the biggest projects, those funding rounds of 30, 50, $100 million that you sometimes hear about would probably not use this model. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah. That's not our audience for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your ideal customer, I guess?
Our ideal customer is mostly hackathon projects.
Okay.
So we have already all of this mechanics in place where we have a bunch of hackathons from ETH events that are independently organized throughout the world, from other types of events like Solana events. We've done all of that. And considering that most of these projects end up in our platform not doing anything with what they've created, this will probably be our primary source of projects. And this, of course, doesn't go into the box that you've defined. The ones that already have VC funding, the ones that already have high evaluations. So that's not our target for sure. And then this is permissionless, so anyone can join. It doesn't necessarily need to be someone from one of our hackathons. It can be from competitors' platform, for example, from a ETH Global event, from a weekend project with a friend. There's this vibe coding thing going on. Well, if you vibe coded during a Saturday afternoon and you want to launch it in the garden, be my guest. That's the type of things that we want to see. And that will also allow people, both from a user standpoint and from an investor standpoint, to spot projects early. And that is something that I believe it's quite powerful. And I don't see, a lot of VCs or traditional investors going to hackathons and trying to figure out what's going on, because there's a lot of talent and there's a lot of projects that could be funded and that could be very successful. Yeah,
because there's really a lot of kind of alpha in the PumpFun trenches, where if you just look at kind of every project that's bonded, you can find stuff early.
Yes.
And this is kind of an opportunity for that retail participant to be earlier than a VC or an institution or an exchange or something.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
For example, 1inch actually came from a hackathon.
Wild.
I don't know if you know this, but they developed all of that during a weekend, and they said, we want to dedicate ourselves to this. So let's keep on building this. And at the time, VCs didn't take them seriously because they thought, okay, but these comes from a weekend project. We want to see traction. We want to see users. We want to see everything. And they ended up bootstrapping all of the products. Until they've proven to be successful, and then they got a lot of investors' money. But until that point, they went from hackathon project into becoming a startup on their own. If there was a garden back then, maybe they could go through that route and through that process.
Mm-hmm. What's the economic model on the garden side of things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. Our business model is essentially based on the token launch. So we have no fees for graduation or creating a project or whatever. Even if you're graduated and you don't launch a token, we don't make money, but we get very interesting projects to be showcased. So that's what we're looking for. But actually, the way that we make money is through the token sale. We charge 1% of the token sale, and then we end up having also a percentage of the swapping fee. So as I mentioned, mostly goes to the team and community if the project wants, and another part goes to us. So through that way, we can make sure that we're winning if the project is winning, and if they are in fact making their token launch successful. If not, then we don't earn anything. So that's basically what we believe that is fair for us.
I know kind of community is a big component, and if your platform is successful, it means successful launches are coming out of the platform, and that will kind of create an audience in the same way that kind of PumpFun has done. What percentage of the value add to founders do you think is kind of the TaiKai Garden community, and what percentage is kind of like the token launch infrastructure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we're also trying to figure out. To be honest. So at the moment, we're talking with a lot of potential partners like incubators, accelerators, cybersecurity auditors. So all these players that are in the market and that can add value to the projects. As I mentioned, we only make money if the project launches a token, but even if they don't, we want to make sure that we have good projects, right? Because that's what's going to build our reputation over time. And by having all of these partners, we can better help these projects to grow. So we truly think that we should have a mindset of giving first, as a proper garden should do, planting the seed, making sure that these projects or these plants are watered every now and then, and watch them grow. And once they grow, they will probably give fruits. So that's our hope.
I think broadly, there's obviously people this is very much a hot button issue, and people are trying to figure out how retail investors can better get access to these things. And I think broadly, there's kind of two approaches to it. Mm-hmm. One is around letting this type of, let's call them retail investors, getting access to early stage projects.
Yeah.
And that's like Echo or kind of token launch platforms, CoinList, stuff like that. And basically that idea says we want community to replace VCs in a big way. We want them to be able to fund at an early stage. Fair Launch kind of takes this other approach, which is basically we want you to be able to buy a liquid token at an early stage.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways, for a lot of teams, the first model makes more sense because and a lot of times it takes 2 years to get to a successful product or something, and you don't want to have your liquid token before anything exists.
Yeah.
Yet you guys continue to make the kind of, or to have the opinion that fair launch is the way to go. Why is that, despite the success of kind of this like longer term funding cycle that exists adjacent to your platform?
Yeah, so I'm a user of both Echo and Legion. I think they're very good and solid products. My experience there as an investor has been good on identifying good projects, but then I have to wait 1 year or 2 years for TG, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of lose momentum, and as an investor, you don't feel so attached to that specific project. You cannot probably use the project because there isn't any product yet live, or if there is, there's no direct incentive of you holding tokens of something that is not liquid yet, and the product that exists. So what we're thinking that makes sense is actually to have this direct correlation. I always see tokens as a proxy of product success, adoption, traction, because typically, or what they should is to go hand by hand. Doesn't happen every single time, but most of them do. So answering to your question, I think that using this fair launch approach allows you to set up a sale where you can build that buying momentum, gathering the right people and gathering the right community around your token. But I also feel like you should launch right after that. Because if you're holding out and you're just, what happens to 90% of these projects is that they're always waiting for the best time to GGE.
Right.
And the best time doesn't happen, right? There's no perfect timing to do that. And they end up missing, a good time frame to do it. So if you have all of these things on a process and on specific mechanics, then you have no other way to do it, and that will be the norm. And you won't be competing with projects that are not doing that, because those are looking at you and saying, okay, maybe this is a fair way to do things.
I think there's another component, and we'll see, and even like with crypto at large, we've seen kind of like the 10-year IPO timeline getting compressed. Yeah. And now with like AI tools, right, people can come and ship a product in a weekend, and it can be a really meaningful product, right? We've seen unicorns come out of that. Yeah. So I think that's another component on why people should shift towards kind of sharing equity essentially earlier. What's your greatest ambition for TaiKai? In a year, 2 or 5, what would be like TaiKai's greatest success for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, picking up on what I just mentioned, we want to become the standard of funding within the Web3 space. So that's where we want to position ourselves. And I also believe, this is considering 1 year's time. And I believe that by doing so, we're able to replicate the success that PumpFun has or had. And on top of that, I think that tokens will evolve in a way. I think that we'll start to see, we're already seeing this very old promise of tokenizing everything coming into play, right? Mm-hmm. So the real world assets, we're seeing, bonds getting tokenized, equity getting tokenized, real estate getting tokenized. So tokens will probably, become a lot more similar to equities and to securities than what they are right now, which is essentially utility or governance tokens. And we also want to take part into that. So if we're able to navigate this sooner and actually become the standard in the industry, then we are not just a Web3 platform. Because if virtually anyone can tokenize their equity, we can be the platform for every startup. So this is my ambition. I know it's very bold and very audacious, but I truly believe that that can happen.
Phenomenal. Well, I think that's a great note to wrap up on. Thanks so much for your time, and we're excited to see this vision play out.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack.